Hey everyone, this is Prince from Desi Programmer. Welcome back to another exciting video in this React.js series. And in this video, we are going to write some code. We are going to get started with understanding how this project works, what JSX is, and we'll make some changes to our app component. So go to whatever folder where you have created your project, and whatever name of your project is, just right click on that and click on open with code. Assuming that you are using VS Code. If you're using something else, now you're on your own to open the project at least. Then once you have the project up and running, next thing is that you need a browser, which should be there too. So once you have this up and running, as you can see, there are a lot of files. I've already explained you what each file does, but now in the next 2 or 3 minutes, whatever I'm going to explain you, if you don't understand it, just don't worry at all. This is something that most people don't get it when they are learning React.js for the first time. I did not get it when I was trying to learn React.js for the first time. So just don't worry if you don't understand this. If you do, you are good to go. So first and foremost, if you have a project created, we know that you can simply use npm start to run a project, right? So what happens when you run a project? We have talked about a couple of files that we get, but what actually happens when you run a project? So when I do npm start, it's obviously going to search for a start script in our package.json file, okay? And here we have a start script which basically says, hey, just start with from React scripts. So this will first go to the source folder, and there it will look for an index.js file. As you can see, we already have an index.js file. Here it will, we have a couple of imports, okay? So we have React and we have React DOM. Okay, so in React DOM, we are basically going to render an app component. Okay, this is basically React in strict mode. We are rendering one single component, that is app. You can render only one single component here. That's in this case, you can say this is app which we are importing. And then we are saying document.getElementById, which is root. So remember, first thing, just as I said, in your public folder, we have a couple of files. Most of them can be easily replaced and will be replaced if you are pushing your app in production, other than one, which is index.html. Now here we do have a division with an ID of root. And in your index.js, as we said, we have document.getElementById with an ID of root. So this is what happens. What we do is that React DOM creates a virtual DOM and it renders this app component on our index.html page, like in this real DOM, with a division which has an ID of root. Alright, now there, if you don't have a division with an ID of root, you will get an error, and you can easily rename this root with whatever you want. You just have to make sure that it is the same one here too, and you're good to go. Anyway, after this we go to the app component, and as you can see, even in our app component, we have a function of app and it returns something. Okay, what this returns is basically called as JSX, and in this JSX, as you can see, this is kind of like HTML with couple of differences. Obviously, like you don't have class, you have class name. So let me tell you a couple of things about JSX right now. It's basically HTML but with wings. Now since you are using HTML kind of markup in JavaScript, basically there are a couple of keywords which are for JavaScript, which are reserved for JavaScript, and they can't be used, which is why when Facebook wanted to integrate HTML into JavaScript, it has to make a way to integrate those keywords too. One very good example of that is class. Okay, we all know that class is a keyword in JavaScript. So if I am saying division and the class here, then it's going to give me errors, right? Which is why we have class name, and you will see the same changes almost everywhere. Rest is almost same. As you can see, we have our division tag, the division tag ends. We have an a tag, the a tag ends. The only difference is that we don't have class, we have class name. href, it's not an issue with JavaScript, so it is there as it is. We have target, it is there as it is. We have relation, it is there as it is. So this is the thing. B, you don't need to force yourself to spend a lot of time learning JSX. Like JSX is nothing much to learn, but if you're trying to learn JSX right now, it's going to give you a lot of issues. So don't try to learn everything about JSX right now. Eventually you will learn how to do a lot of manipulations in JSX. You will learn how to render things from arrays, objects, map, and well, whatnot. Anyway, so in this app.js component, we basically return this division which has a class name of app, and this class name of app, remember, it's basically coming from app.css. In this app.css, we have a class name of app which basically just says text align to center. So well, simply we render something here. As you can see, we have an image, okay, and we have an a which says learn React. If we run the app, it's basically going to render this particular HTML in this division. Alright, so if I do npm start, so it could take a minute or two, so just be a little patient, but then you will basically see this particular page with a spinning logo and it says learn React. Everything that we have in our app.js file, right? Good to go. Anyway, let's remove everything and let's do everything on our scratch. So I'll first remove everything. Okay, I won't save it because I don't want to show any error. So any basic component, and we will talk about component in detail later on, but right now a basic component basically comes from React. By the way, even if you don't import React right now, you'll be good to go. So to create a basic component, a component is basically nothing. You just have a function. You give your function a name, let's say app, which is necessary right now because we are importing app from this app.js file. As you can see in the index.js, we are importing app, which is why this has to be app. You can rename this to Prince. Just you have to change this app to Prince and this app to Prince, and you'll be good to go. I don't want to do that. This is app and I'm good with that. So we basically have a function, okay, and we have to export this function as default from this file. So we have export default app. I really hope this is the correct syntax, right? Okay, and from this app we return something, okay, and this return is basically going to be JSX. Now JSX, as said, it's HTML with wings, so we can return simple HTML too. I can do an h1 tag and I can say, hey, welcome. Of course, this is the wrong spelling, but here we have welcome. Okay, let's do welcome. Great. So this is a simple h1 tag. I can return an a tag with an href attribute, which could be, let's say, anything. Just let it be empty, and now we have an a tag here. Now what JSX basically is, it is basically JavaScript in HTML. So let's say I have a variable. The variable name is I have a variable of username, and this is Prince. Now here's the interesting thing. If you're using simple HTML, CSS and JavaScript, also referred as vanilla JavaScript, and if you want to substitute this particular value from your JavaScript to HTML, what we do? We simply try to use any query selector. It could be document.getElement by class name, getElement by ID, or document.querySelector, something as such. Then if that's an p tag, h1 tag, anything as such, you use whatever your variable name is, and then dot inner text is equal to this particular variable, and that will be changed. Now here in JSX, it's very simple. If you are returning something, alright, and if you want to use any JavaScript variable right here, you can simply wrap it with this flower brackets. So I want to use my username variable here. I can simply wrap this with these flower brackets, and now this will be easily replaced here. If I save this, now you see we have welcome Prince. I should actually change this back to h1 for visibility purpose. Great. Now as you can see, this has welcome Prince. This is one of the best thing about JSX, which is that JSX actually lets you easily use JavaScript even in your JSX code, which means if I change this value over time, it will be simply replaced here with username. Not just that, you can use expressions, you can use conditional renderings and well, whatnot. So for example, I can do something like username dot to uppercase. Okay, save this, and now you have welcome Prince. It's all in caps. I could do something like username dot to lowercase, save this, and now you have everything in lowercase. So this basically gives you all the options to use any kind of JavaScript within your HTML. I can do something like welcome 1+1, save, and this is hey welcome 2. I can do something like hey welcome 100 mod 40. This is going to be welcome 20. So basically we are using JavaScript in HTML. Right now I know it's absurd. Why would you say welcome 20, anything as such? But as we move forward, you will see how this actually makes it so simple to easily use JavaScript in your code whenever you want. So well, that's pretty much it from my side in this video. I'll catch you up soon in the next video where we'll talk about components in React.js.